All right, so get ready because today we're going to dive into Aristotle's Politics.
Yeah.
You know, that book that it seems like everybody has heard of,
hmm
but it feels like very few people have actually sat down and wrestled with.
It's a big book, and it's complicated, but it's worth it.
You think so?
Or absolutely. I mean, there's so many just incredible insights in there
Okay.
that are just as relevant today as they were back then.
So we've done our best to kind of wade through all of the denseness of it all, to
Yeah.
pull out some of the, I guess what you would consider the juiciest bits.
Absolutely, the most important parts.
Yeah, and we're gonna be focusing on some questions like, what makes a good citizen?
Right.
Are some forms of government better than others? And is getting involved in politics really the key to living a good life?
These are big questions. And it's really interesting the way that Aristotle approaches these questions is by first examining human nature itself.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit because you're referencing his very famous statement, man is by nature a political animal,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, like, how does that even make sense? It's not like we roam in packs. You know, I'm not out like howling at the moon with my buddies every night. Like, what does that even mean?
Well, this is where, Aristotle's genius comes in.
Okay.
He wasn't talking about, humans being like literally like wolves or lions,
Right.
roaming around in packs. He was getting at something much deeper, I think. Something about our capacity, our unique capacity for reasoned speech.
Okay.
It's this ability to kind of engage in debate and grapple with, these concepts of justice and morality that makes us inherently political beings.
So it's less about like a physical grouping and more about our ability to like have complex discussions about how we should live together
That's exactly right.
and how we should govern ourselves.
Yeah. And because of this ability, Aristotle argues that the state, or the political community is actually prior to the individual.
What does that mean?
In other words, it's only within the context of a society that we can really fulfill our potential as human beings.
So the state, the political community comes before the individual, in his view.
Yes, that's right.
That's pretty interesting. Um, I think I need an example. Like, why would he think that?
Well, think about it this way. He uses this analogy of a severed hand.
Okay.
Right? So a severed hand, it's still called a hand, right?
Sure.
But it can't actually function on its own.
No. Right.
Similarly, he believed that a person who was isolated from society can't truly live a complete human life. We need the community. We need the state to thrive.
Okay, yeah, that analogy kind of makes it a little bit more easy to understand.
Yeah.
So, okay, so if we apply this to us today, like in the 21st century, how does that even work?
Yeah.
Like, how do we see ourselves as part of this bigger political community?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's like, are we active in our communities? Are we shaping our communities? Or is politics just this thing that's happening, separate from our everyday lives?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question. Now, before we get too far down that rabbit hole of today's world, let's talk a little bit about how Aristotle went head to head with his mentor Plato
Oh, yeah.
on some pretty fundamental ideas.
Yeah. They had some legendary debates back and forth.
Yeah, philosophical sparring matches. It's
Yeah.
pretty fun to read those if you can find them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of those was over Plato's Utopia, outlined in his book Republic.
Right.
And specifically, Aristotle took issue with Plato's radical idea of abolishing private property and family structures.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, I remember reading this, and I just thought, like, wow, it's so fascinating how Aristotle used the ambiguity of the word all to kind of dismantle one of Plato's core arguments.
Yeah, that's right. So Plato was arguing that this communal ownership where everybody calls the same things, mine, spouses, children, possessions, would create this ultimate unity. But Aristotle kind of cleverly pointed out that, all can be understood in two ways. It can be understood collectively and individually. So while everyone might say all collectively about, shared property, could they really say mine about anything individually?
It's a very subtle point,
It is.
but it really gets to the heart of, what it means to feel ownership and a sense of personal connection to something.
Exactly.
And if I remember correctly, Aristotle also had some pretty strong feelings about the practical implications
Yeah.
of shared ownership. He didn't really think it would result in a harmonious society, did he?
Yeah. Well, no, not exactly. He argued that communal living would actually weaken the bonds of affection and responsibility,
Hmm.
and it would kind of lead to this watered down sense of community.
Yeah, he even uses this great analogy. He compares it to diluting a fine wine with water.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. You lose something when you try to, stretch things out too thin.
That's less potent.
That's right.
And also, I remember this detail about some ancient geographers
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that he mentions.
Yeah, so they observe this community in Libya where, despite this custom of common wives, paternity was still determined by resemblance.
Yes, they're trying to engineer the society where biological families don't matter,
Right.
but human nature kind of finds a way.
That's right.
So, do you think that we can look at shared ownership today and maybe see some of those same concerns that Aristotle had?
I think that's a question worth thinking about, especially as we think about things like economic equality and social welfare. It really makes you think about, where do we draw the line between individual ownership and shared responsibility?
Yeah, it's a really great question, especially when you think about things like universal basic income and and all of those programs. Now, Aristotle, believed very much in private property, but it wasn't like he was advocating for like total individualism.
No.
Right. Like he believed that property should ultimately serve the common good and that some things maybe should be shared, especially if they were essential for survival.
That's right, yeah. And in fact, he even points out that arguments very often arise between travelers and servants who share common property,
Hmm.
just highlighting this potential for conflict when ownership isn't clearly defined.
Okay. So like where is the line? Do you think he was on to something there? Like with this balance?
It's a great question, and I think it's one that's still very relevant to us today.
Okay.
But I think before we go too far down that road, we should talk about another key aspect of his political philosophy, which is the different forms of government.
Okay, so Aristotle identifies a whole bunch of different systems, right? Like
Yeah.
monarchy, aristocracy, oligarchy, democracy.
That's right. Yep.
I'm already lost. Like, how do I even keep track of all these?
Don't worry, we'll break it down. But what's interesting is that unlike Plato, who believed in a single ideal form,
Hmm.
Aristotle argues that the best form of government actually depends on the specific circumstances
Okay.
and the character of the people being governed.
So there's no like one size fits all solution.
Yeah, that's right.
That makes sense.
And to illustrate this point, we need to talk about one of the most intriguing examples from the politics, the Athenian practice of ostracism.
Oh yeah, yeah, where they would kick people out of the city
That's right.
just for being too popular or too powerful.
Yeah, that's right. They had this really fascinating mechanism to prevent any individual, no matter how talented or virtuous, from becoming too dominant.
Okay.
And potentially destabilizing the state.
So you could get kicked out for just being like too awesome.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty intense. But really, is that even just? I mean, like, can you really kick somebody out just for being too good at what they do?
Well, that's the dilemma that Aristotle grapples with, right?
Yeah.
He recognized the potential danger of unchecked power, but he also questioned, is it fair to punish someone solely for their excellence?
Yeah. So it's like, how much individual rights do you have
Yep.
versus the stability of the state?
Yeah, exactly. That tension is something we still deal with today.
We do. Yeah.
Think about all the debates that we have about, free speech versus hate speech,
Right.
or the balance of power between, individual liberty and national security.
Yeah. Those are huge questions.
Yeah, they are.
So would you support a system like ostracism in today's world?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I think Aristotle would want us to really think critically about it.
Okay.
To weigh the potential benefits against against the potential injustices.
Hmm.
And speaking of thinking critically, I think it's time we tackled one of Aristotle's most fundamental questions. What is the best life?
All right, let's get philosophical here,
Yeah.
because I know that Aristotle even questioned whether a life of politics was truly the best path to happiness.
Yeah.
Like, is that really all there is?
It's a great question. Yeah, it's a question that really goes to the heart of the politics and really all of Aristotle's philosophy. Like, what does it mean to live a good life, to live a fulfilling life?
I mean, there's so many different viewpoints on that, even today.
Right.
So, like, how did Aristotle even begin to answer that?
Well, he actually presents a range of opinions on this.
Okay.
Acknowledging that some people see political involvement as actually a hindrance to personal happiness.
Okay.
Right. They might see it as a distraction from pursuing knowledge or creating art or just simply enjoying life's pleasures.
So, like, the best life is one that's uh, removed from the messy world of politics.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a certain appeal to that perspective. But Aristotle also presents the opposite view,
Okay.
that true fulfillment comes from active citizenship, from using your talents to serve the community and to strive for the common good.
So it's like he's weighing those two things, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Like the contemplative life versus the active life.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that he doesn't just present these two opposing views and kind of leave it at that.
Yep.
He actually goes deeper and he questions the motives of those who seek power.
Okay, so like people who want power just for the sake of having power.
Yeah, exactly. He points to societies like Sparta,
Okay.
where war and domination were prized above all else.
Okay.
And he challenges us to consider whether this relentless pursuit of power over others can ever truly lead to a good life. Even for those who are in charge, can seeking to tyrannize others ever really be considered statesmanlike?
Yeah, it's like he's saying that even if you are really good at politics, like if your goal is just to control other people,
Right.
that's not true excellence.
That's right. Yeah.
Like you have to have some kind of morality there.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a moral dimension to leadership.
Okay.
This responsibility to use power for the common good.
So this brings us back to us, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do we think constitutes a good life?
Yeah.
Is politics essential? Is it optional? Is it even potentially harmful?
Yeah. It's a huge question, and it's one that feels especially relevant right now, given the state of politics around the world.
Yeah, I mean, you look like everywhere, and it's there's so much division and polarization, and it feels like we've lost the ability to even have like a civil discourse.
Right.
It's a really interesting question. It makes me think of this part in the politics where Aristotle talks about the ultimate goal of the state.
Yeah.
And he says that while a city, needs to be prepared for war, its real purpose should be to create a context for its citizens to live a good life and to pursue happiness.
Yeah, that's a powerful idea. And it really challenges us to think about, what a society that truly prioritizes the well-being of its people, what that would actually look like.
It's not about just surviving, it's about flourishing.
That's right. Yeah.
So, like, how do we do that? Like, what kind of structures and policies do we need? What values do we have to embrace, both individually and collectively?
It's a conversation that I think we need to be having as a society.
Yeah.
As a global community even.
Absolutely, and it's a conversation that Aristotle's politics, despite being written over 2,000 years ago, can still help us navigate.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a testament to his enduring brilliance that his work still resonates so deeply with the challenges that we face today.
Yeah. Now, before we wrap up our deep dive into the politics, I do want to touch on one more aspect of the book that I think is really interesting, and that is the practical side of governance.
Oh yeah.
Because Aristotle wasn't just a big picture thinker.
Right.
He also wanted to get into the nitty-gritty details of how to actually run a state.
That's right. I mean, he doesn't shy away from the nuts and bolts.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
So Like what were some of those some of the key insights that he offered in that area?
Well, one issue that really concerned him was the distribution of wealth and property.
Okay.
He recognized that that extreme economic inequality could lead to social unrest and political instability.
Well, and that's a concern that we still have today, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And to address this issue, Aristotle actually proposes some uh pretty progressive measures for his time.
Right.
He suggests limits on land ownership
Okay.
and even mechanisms for redistributing excess property,
Wow.
to prevent the concentration of wealth in the hands of just a small few.
I didn't realize that he went that far. That's pretty radical for ancient Greece.
Yeah, I mean he was ahead of his time in many ways,
Yeah.
and it highlights just how attuned he was to the social and economic conditions that really shape a political system. He understood that a stable and flourishing state requires a certain degree of economic balance and fairness.
And didn't he also have some interesting things to say about the importance of a strong middle class?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Uh-huh.
He argued that a large and thriving middle class was crucial for a well-functioning state.
Okay.
He believed that middle-class citizens were more likely to be moderate in their views, less prone to kind of extremes, and therefore better able to contribute to a stable and harmonious society.
So like almost like a political centrism where
Yeah.
you're avoiding those extremes on either end of the spectrum.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He really saw the middle ground as the space of reason and balance, where opposing viewpoints could be reconciled, and the common good could be pursued more effectively.
It's pretty amazing how these ideas in the politics just keep uh, echoing in our modern political discourse.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, we're still having the same conversations about the role of government in regulating the economy,
Right.
the need for social safety nets, and the dangers of political polarization.
And it's a testament to Aristotle's enduring relevance that his work continues to provide us with a framework for thinking about these complex issues. He offers such a rich and nuanced perspective on human nature, on the purpose of government, and on the challenges of living together in a just and flourishing society.
Yeah, it's really incredible how a book that was written so long ago can still offer so many insight into the human condition.
Mm-hmm.
And as we reach the end of our deep dive into Aristotle's politics,
Mm-hmm.
I think it is important to acknowledge that we've really only scratched the surface of this vast and complex work.
Oh, absolutely. There's always more to discover in the politics.
Yeah.
It's a book that really rewards multiple readings and continued reflection.
And we encourage you to continue exploring Aristotle's ideas on your own.
Absolutely.
Engage with his arguments, challenge his assumptions, and see what resonates with you.
Because ultimately, engaging with great thinkers like Aristotle,
Mm-hmm.
it isn't about blindly accepting everything that they say. It's about using their insights as a springboard for your own critical thinking
Yeah.
and your own search for truth.
Beautifully put. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this intellectual journey. We hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to continue grappling with these big questions of politics and citizenship and the good life.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
We always appreciate you tuning in, and we look forward to diving into more fascinating topics together in future episodes. It's funny when you think about ancient philosophers, you kind of picture them sitting in ivory towers,
Right.
just debating these really abstract concepts.
Yeah.
But Aristotle was actually really grounded in the realities of everyday life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He really wanted to understand how to create a society where those ideals could actually flourish.
Okay, so let's get into those details then. What were some of the specific challenges that Aristotle saw when it came to actually running a state?
Well, one area that he focused on was lawmaking. And he believed that that laws should be carefully crafted to reflect the values and the needs of the community, but he also warned against having too many laws.
Okay.
He thought that an overabundance of regulations could actually stifle individual initiative and create a climate of fear rather than freedom.
Yeah, that definitely resonates today.
Yeah.
You hear a lot of people complaining about government overreach and all the red tape.
Exactly, yeah.
It seems like he was wrestling with this really timeless tension, right, between order and liberty.
Absolutely. Trying to find that balance between establishing a framework for a just society without stifling the dynamism that allows individuals and communities to thrive.
So this kind of leads into another practical challenge that he tackled, which is education.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Aristotle had some pretty strong opinions about how young citizens should be educated. So, like, what was his take on that?
He believed that education was absolutely essential for a healthy state.
Okay.
He saw it as the foundation for creating virtuous and engaged citizens
Okay.
who could contribute to the common good.
So it wasn't just about like acquiring knowledge for the sake of knowledge.
No, not at all. He believed that education should cultivate character,
Okay.
instilling in young people the values and the habits necessary to become responsible and active members of society.
So what do you think you would think about, education today?
Oh, that's a great question, and one that I'm sure he would have a lot to say about. I think the core principle would remain the same. Education should equip citizens with the knowledge, with the skills, and with the character traits necessary to participate in and contribute to a thriving society.
And this, all kind of circles back to one of Aristotle's, most fundamental beliefs that humans are by nature political animals.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not enough to just live in a society.
Yeah.
We have a responsibility to actually shape it.
Absolutely. He really believed that true fulfillment comes from participating in the political life of the community, from engaging in those crucial conversations about justice and morality and the common good.
That's a really powerful message, especially today when it's so easy to feel disillusioned by politics.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be easy to just check out, but I think Aristotle would remind us that even though politics can be, messy and frustrating, it's also the arena where we come together to shape our collective future, and that's a responsibility that we shouldn't take lightly.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Aristotle's politics, what do you hope our listeners will take away from this exploration?
Well, I hope they'll come away with a renewed appreciation for just the enduring power of Aristotle's ideas. Even though he was writing over 2,000 years ago, his insights into human nature and the purpose of government and the challenges of living together in a just and flourishing society are just still so incredibly relevant today.
And I hope they'll be inspired to continue engaging with these big questions and to participate in those crucial conversations about how we can create a better world, both for ourselves and for future generations.
Absolutely. Well said.
Well, it's been a pleasure diving into these ideas with you.
It's been a pleasure being here.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this intellectual journey. We encourage you to pick up a copy of The Politics and see what gems you can unearth for yourselves. And until next time, keep those thinking caps on and keep exploring the world of ideas.